inquiries that he made towards our victim. Mr. Brzezowski was either a paid assistant or volunteer coach in multiple programs in Carroll County, Baltimore County, Maryland, and in the York County, Pennsylvania areas. He also was associated with the Hereford Volunteer Fire Department and their junior firefighter program. We believe there may be other victims when considering his predatory behavior with our victim and the information we were provided when we contacted the numerous other programs he was associated with. I think if you read the statement of charges and supporting affidavit, you will understand our concern that there may be other victims of unreported abuse. Now, I'll go through a timeline that we've been able to secure through records and through information that our victim supplied us with programs that he was involved in Baltimore, Carroll, and in the York County, Pennsylvania areas. We know that he was involved with the Hereford Volunteer Fire Department from 2004 to present date. He was involved with he was a volunteer football coach at the Hereford Middle School in Baltimore County from 2007 to 2008. He was a volunteer for the Hereford Recreational Football Program in 2007 to 2009. He applied for a paid staffing position with the Hereford High School in 2008 and 2009. He volunteered as an assistant football coach at the North Carroll Rec Council from 2009 to 2010. He was an assistant football coach for the Manchester Valley High School in Carroll County, 2011 and 2012. He was assistant coach for York County School of Technology in York, Pennsylvania, 2011 and 2012. He was on the volunteer staff, or he was a volunteer on the staff of the Chesapeake Rock Lacrosse Club in Baltimore County, Maryland, 2014 and 2015. He was a volunteer with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Baltimore County from 2016 to 2017. He was a volunteer with the staff at the Hamilton Football League in Baltimore County, 2017. He was employed by the Bryn Mawr School in Baltimore City in 2019. We also have records that indicate that he was employed by the Baltimore County Public School System as a food services worker, but at this point we can't identify the specific school that he was a worker at. We're still working on getting those records. These are the programs that we're familiar with and that we can find documentation on that he worked at as either a volunteer or a paid assistant, or actually was employed at. We're asking anyone that may be a victim, have information on who may be a victim, or have any information that's pertinent to this case, to give us a call. We've dedicated a phone line so that you can call into us. It's 443-373-1684. Or you can contact my lead detective, Detective Michael McMillian. You can email him at Mike McMillian or mmcmillian, mmcmillion at carrollcountymd.gov. Because most of the organizations Mr. Brzezowski was associated with are in Baltimore County, if you have information about any of those cases or you want to speak with detectives in the Baltimore County, Detective Dan Coons with the Baltimore County Police Department is the lead detective for any incident that may have occurred there. And again, you can call either number and we'll direct you to the appropriate organization that's looking into these cases. His number is 410-853-3650. Now I'll turn it over to our State's Attorney, Mr. Alan Culver, to make a couple of statements, and then I'll answer. I'm sure you guys have a number of questions that you may have. Alan?
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning, everyone. Let me first say that since this is a pending criminal matter, we are limited as to what we can say in regards to the case. However, we did want to take this opportunity to provide general information to anyone out there who's concerned about possible victims. First of all, I'll point everyone to two very good websites. First one is the National Children's Alliance, and the other one is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which many people know better as NCMEC. As far as possible signs of abuse, things that folks could look for, and if they're concerned, things that may seem self-explanatory but may be possible signs of abuse. The National Children's Alliance indicates that things like unexplained injuries, changes in behavior, If someone appears scared, a child appears scared about things they didn't used to be scared about, returning or regressing to earlier behaviors, thumb sucking, things of that nature, fear of going home or to a particular place, changes in habits, changes in eating, changes in sleeping, changes in their school performance, whether it be their grades or their attendance, lack of personal care to their hygiene, if they start risk-taking behaviors or any inappropriate sexual behaviors. Now, these aren't the only signs, but these are possible examples if you're concerned about signs of victims of abuse. Now, if any victims do disclose out there, what we wanted to tell people is what you should do is reassure them that it's okay and that you're there to help. You should also, of course, remain calm and non-judgmental and let them know that being exploited is never their fault. And finally, of course, if any children or victims do disclose, gather that information, but then please contact law enforcement. The investigators involved in these cases, they're experts. They receive very detailed training in the interviewing of sex abuse victims, specifically minors, and they're in the best position to get the information. So that's all I have, and I'll turn it back over to the sheriff for questions.
So I know you guys will have a lot of questions, and my PIO will send out a press release after this particular briefing, and it'll have the details of all the organizations that I mentioned, and it should also have a photograph of our suspect, Mr. Buzowski. We also recognize that the span of time that he has had access to juveniles ranges from as far back as we can see 2004 and as recent as 2019. So we know that there may be adult victims out there, but we also are concerned that there could also be underage and juvenile victims out there based on the organizations that he participated in. So this is him. I will tell you that I'm a father of children in sports, ranging from basketball to soccer to baseball. I couldn't tell you who my son's or daughter's assistant coach was back in 2004. But the reason that I want to give dates out and specific organizations are that if you had a child that played football for a particular organization during that time period, then it might be worthwhile seeing if they had this individual as an assistant coach. We all know who our head coaches were, and there were people that made an impact in our lives, but you may have had this individual as an assistant coach, and I think folks need to see this individual and understand and look at the dates that your child may have participated in programs there. What questions do you have?
Can you spell his last name, please?
Yeah. I have it as Bonczewski. Buzowski is how he pronounces it. Buzowski.
First and middle name?
Michael Vincent.
How old?
He's 39 years old right now.
Did he have any other employment outside of coaching?
We don't know that, Kristen. We've been trying to search records, but my detective's gotten pretty in depth with the amount of programs that he's gone through employment records. I didn't want to put any information out there on a program that we did not personally speak with and confirm that he was either a volunteer assistant or a paid coach or actually had employment at those locations.
And you listed half a dozen to a dozen places that he has interacted with kids over the last 15 to 20 years.
Correct.
Do you have any idea, a ballpark number of youth that he interacted with?
I mean, just because like I said, I'm a parent of it's hundreds, obviously. But again, if you take the charging documents and read the documents, I think you'll get a better idea of he sees his opportunities. What parents should understand is that he reaches out to kids inappropriately on social media apps and tries to ask for different things through the app and has been turned away by many, but in this particular case, he did communicate with our victim. So social media apps and programs are important for moms and dads to look at and get an idea if he's communicating with them. Seems innocent. Facebook, is primarily what we believe he's been communicating with.
You said he was in all of these different jurisdictions at different times and very likely had contact with youth in all these different jurisdictions at all these different times. Was part of the investigation looking into complaints in any of these jurisdictions? Were
They
there
are.
any complaints filed in these jurisdictions?
Yeah, part of the investigation would be looking at complaints to develop a pattern of behavior. And we do have those, but I'm not going to disclose these specific. I will just tell you that he was asked to leave a number of organizations for this type of behavior.
Complaints within the organization or complaints with law enforcement?
Complaints within the organization, yeah. And this is the first time law enforcement's heard about this individual that we can find.
Did you also seize certain amounts of pornographic images?
So I will tell you, we executed a search warrant yesterday morning when we arrested him at his residence, seized computers and phones and any other electronic device that the search warrant allowed us to seize. The only thing I will tell you is that we've been able to do a quick thumbnail and look at some of the devices and the images are concerning.
So do you believe he had sexual activity with these young people?
Well, we know he's being charged with having sexual activity with our victim. That's disclosed in the charging document. Just the one victim right now. But we know through our investigation as we start talking to other organizations that he participated in or volunteered with, that his behavior is similar. He was asked to leave for similar behavior to how he started the relationship with our one victim.
And who was he most currently employed by?
It looks like the Bryn Mawr School in Baltimore City, and the last that we could see is 2019 there.
Is that a public school?
I don't believe it is. I think it's a private school.
So among the places where he's been over the last 15, 20 years you mentioned, and I'm from York County, so can we talk a little bit about his connection over the state line? You did mention the York County School of Technology.
That's the only individual jurisdiction that we believe he had contact with or volunteered at. But again, these are just records that we could find and through interviews with our victim.
But were there any specific victims that you identified in York County?
In York County, no. No.
So why are you other than employment connections, why do you believe there is involvement in York County?
I won't say that there absolutely is involvement in York County, but we know through these types of investigations and the information that we receive from York County and the disclosures from our victim that there's a likelihood that there could be victims in York County.
Is he facing any charges?
Nothing in York County. Nothing across the state line. But I would be neglected if I didn't put this information out and I didn't show his photograph based on what I know about this individual and explain to parents that if you had contact with him, that it would be wise for you to speak with your children. And if you're an adult survivor and you have something that you want to disclose to us, that we're open and ready to hear your disclosure. And I've done these cases for several years myself, and I know that it takes an awful lot for someone that could be a victim, especially as an adult, to come forward and disclose this information. But we're ready to receive that. There is no statute of limitations on crimes like this in the state of Maryland. And so that's why in this case it's a little bit older. Our victim is an adult. But we know he's had contact with juveniles up until 2019.
So what would be the range of ages of the individuals, the range, low to high point, range of ages of individuals he had contact with over these years?
Based on what we see in our investigation, it looks like it could be 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, and it appears as though it boys.
And how old would these boys be now?
It depends on when the actual abuse may have occurred. I mean, they could be in their mid-20s or if it's something that happened 2-3 years ago, middle teens, 15, 16 years old.
Sheriff, could you characterize how this finally came to light with the victim? They obviously must have been suffering for almost a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go into the specifics of the victim and what they're suffering from, but the victim did disclose and come forward to us and give us all the information that was required to put the case together. And I will tell you that there is supporting evidence aside from victim statements that support the case.
When you say he was let go, was he ever
based on allegations that, statements that people made, but no specific investigated allegation. I believe it was, he was a volunteer coach or maybe even a paid assistant in some organizations, and statements were made or allegations were made, not investigated by law enforcement. I don't know how in-depth by the school system, and he was asked to leave from several of those organizations.
Including Carroll County Public Schools.
I'd have to go back and look, Kristen. I'm not sure. I think he was, at the end of the football season, he was not asked to come back, and I don't believe it was because of the allegations, but I'd have to go back and look at that.
And in every case, he was coaching football and all?
Other than the lacrosse, the one that we learned of with the lacrosse organization in Baltimore County, it appears as though it's all football related.
You said he was also a food services?
We believe, I'm assuming he was in a school cafeteria serving
In
food.
Baltimore County?
In Baltimore County,
As
correct.
an employee or as a volunteer?
According to our records, it was an employee, but we can't pinpoint, looking at the records, the specific school that he worked at.
You said a search warrant was executed yesterday, is that
Correct.
when he was taken into custody?
He was taken into custody at the same time search warrant was executed. Yeah.
Has he confessed?
I wouldn't tell you that at this point. We're still investigating, so we have interviewed him, but I won't disclose that statement yet.
Can you, based on your list there, indicate what was his role at the York County School of Technology?
It appears as though he was either a paid or volunteer assistant football coach.
And what year would that have been?
Where do I have that at? 2011 and 2012. And it doesn't say he was a volunteer, so I'm assuming he was a paid assistant coach.
Paid assistant coach.
Correct. And my understanding is that he was asked to leave that organization.
The charging documents state he was affiliated with a national team. Is that correct? And which team?
I don't believe it was a national team. I'd have to check with my detective, but I believe it was a Fellowship of Christian Athletes that was a national organization that was based in Baltimore County, that particular chapter in Baltimore County.
You stated earlier as a parent that you wouldn't be able to remember this person's affiliation with any particular organization. Could you talk about, as a parent, what other parents might be thinking about right now watching this?
So, I mean, the name's unique, and, a football program, I know, has multiple coaches that coach specific functions of that team that may not have a whole lot of interaction with other kids on different sides of the ball, for example. So there could be an opportunity that this individual had contact with your child during football programs, but you remember the name, you know the person, but didn't have a whole lot of interaction while you were watching on the football field. In the case of our victim, that's the case. So there wasn't a whole lot of interaction between the two because the football team was large, the coaching staff was large, but there was a specific incident, an injury that took place that brought the two of them together. And that's disclosed in the charging documents. And that's how the relationship began from that point on. So I guess as a parent, I mean, if you're looking at these organizations and you were a parent that had a child in these organizations, or you were in these organizations at the time and you recognize this individual, obviously we're concerned with anyone that was abused years ago. But again, we know that he's had contact with children as recent as 2019, young boys as recent as 2019. And so for me, I would hope that parents would look at this and put the dates together and say, I recognize something that the state's attorney just said, and looking at signs that you may have been abused or your child may have been abused.
And those young boys that you said that very likely he had contact with in 2019 were from Baltimore City, or they just went to Bryn Mawr in Baltimore City?
The one is just Bryn Mawr that we know of in 2019, and then it starts backwards from there. 2017, the Hamilton Football League in Baltimore County. 2017 with Fellowship Christian Athletes lacrosse organization in 14 and 15, and it goes back all the way to 2004.
Will you be providing a copy of those charging documents today?
So you can get a copy of the charging documents. I won't provide them, but my public information officer will give you a press release, and the photograph and the charging documents pretty easy to get through the district court commissioner's office.
You mean as soon as you're done here?
Yep, he'll certainly email. He's here. Jonathan Light over in your right-hand corner. We'll make sure you guys get all the information you need.
So what would you like to say to the families in your county that may have been impacted by this gentleman?
Call us. Talk to your children. If you're a survivor of any sort of abuse, give us a call. Call your local police department and communicate with them. If you have any information that's pertinent to this investigation, or if you know of someone that's disclosed to you as a victim by this individual, then give us a call. I mean, it's as simple as doing that, and then it's as difficult as doing that as well, taking the step to make a call to us.
Have you folks had any contact, the York County School of Technology, to the best of my knowledge, it's outside York City, it's in York Township, I believe. Have you had any communication with York County authorities or York Township, the York Area Regional Police?
It's so chopped up there, it's hard to determine who's got what responsibility, but we have communicated with York County officials on this individual. So nothing that we can see that they've investigated any sort of complaints. Now understand that his association with York County was very, very limited for that short period of time while he was in that football program. Also understand that football programs don't last for the year that I've explained that they last. So it could have started in August and ended in December, but that would have been calendar year 2011 or gone into calendar year 2012, based on our records.
But just to recap, other than his employment situation, his employment association, you have no specific complaint or evidence of any involvement with any youngster from Pennsylvania or York County?
There's no specific allegation that's being made against him that right now is being investigated by my office or York County officials.
And prior to this, obviously, there's been other instances of people abusing children in utilizing athletic programs as an umbrella to be able to do that. Do you find a pattern of any sort of institutional covering of his actions, or is this just him simply jumping from place to place and doing this on his own without any sort of covering up by anybody higher up than him?
That's a good question. I don't see anything institutional that indicates that people were trying to cover up the fact that this guy had his behavior was suspect and that he was moved on. I see problems with the fact that an individual like this can go from state to state or jurisdiction to jurisdiction, program to program, without programs knowing that there could be alleged complaints, or at least having the information at hand. I see problems with that. To the fault of the schools or the programs, no. Policymakers, yes. Legislators, yes. Maybe they should get a little better grip on what goes on when people go from organization to organization, or they're around our children and volunteering or being paid. But no, nothing systemic that we can see that says that they're trying to cover anything up. Okay, thank you. John, can you take care of them?